Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fan Feedback Live event for Graveyard Girl. I appreciate you coming tonight, and I hope that I've got everything under control on this side. Those of you who have been here before, you know I'm not the most expert at this, but I think I've got my act together for tonight. We'll see. I know that there are comments going on the side. You all can post comments and in the chat. So if you've got questions for me, be sure and post them there. And I just wanted to say thanks for coming tonight. And before we get started, I do want to take just a moment and say, for any of you that are dealing with the fires on the West Coast, please know that my heart goes out to you and that we're all thinking about you. And I have a good friend who's just this close to the evacuation zone for the Palisades fire, and we're waiting to hear if he's okay and if he's going to get to stay put or has to go. And it's all very nerve-wracking, and I know you're all seeing the pictures and the video like I am, and it's just horrific. And I'm in Kentucky at the moment, so it just seems especially unfair and ironic that part of our country is on fire, and here in Kentucky we are buried under about a foot of snow and ice. And that's just the way it is in our big country. But anyway, please, if anyone's affected, if you have loved ones out there, I'm sure almost everyone knows someone who knows someone there. Just know that we're all thinking about you, and I think I speak for everyone on the video to say that we just hope that they get the fires under control soon. So I just wanted to start with that. There's a lot more going on in our world than I know than romance novels and all the fun that we have here. So I just wanted to take a moment to make mention of it, and just to let everyone know that we're all watching and we're all pulling for everyone in LA. Okay, also, a couple months ago I mentioned that my social media manager, Scott, who does so much for me and helps keep me in my lane and, I don't know, but between the lines and all of those things, I mentioned that he was feeling under the weather. And a lot of you have emailed me to send good wishes and pass along to Scott. And I'm happy to let you know that he is much recovered and on the way to 100% healing, and he's listening in tonight with his family. I think his mom is there too. Hi, Mary. If so, I just wanted to say hi to Scott and his family, and just say we love you, Scott. And I could not do this without you. So thank you so much, and I'm just glad you're feeling better, my friend. And so we've got a few people joining us tonight. I just wanted to say hello. Let's see. I'll try to get to everybody. Let's see. Ashley, hello. Pat, hello, Pat. Oh, and don't we love Pat for all of her comments and keeping all the daily recaps going and everything, all the discussion lively in the group. Thank you so much, Pat. And Janice is with us. Hi, Janice. If you guys think about it, or if you can jump back in, just tell me where you're calling from, too. I know where some of you are from, but not all of you. Hello, Ellen. Hi, Wilma. And Letitia, hello. And Letitia says hello to everyone else, too. And hello, Carla. And Karen. And Janice. And yeah, if you guys drop a comment in the chat just to let me know you're here, so everyone else can see you're here, and I can say hello. And yeah, let me know where you're calling from. And Janice is saying the fires are really scary, but we're safe where I live. That's so good to hear. Letitia's in North Carolina. Wilma is in Ohio. Pat is in New Mexico. Carla's Carla is viewing, and she's coming to us from Texas. Scott and his family are in Missouri. Hello. And let's see, everybody just keep making those comments, and I'll try to keep looking down. Ashley is from New Hampshire. And Ellen and Marge are in Arizona. instead of Iowa and Pennsylvania. Oh, so you all are together in Arizona instead of at home. I got it. And hi, Linda. Linda's here in Kentucky. Melissa is joining us from Illinois. So thank you, everyone. And by the way, I do have some pre-submitted questions that I'm going to answer. But if you have a question that just occurs to you, if you're joining me tonight, you can drop them in the chat. And I'll get to those too. But I want to go ahead and get started on some of the questions that were pre-submitted. And the first one is not a question, but a comment from Kim. She says, not a question, just an observation I noticed while reading. The dates in the story always match the moon in your stories, which takes a lot of research. You mentioned the black moon, which I had just read about somewhere else. And weird is that the weather always seemed to be accurate. Miss your stories for days at the end, but I love the daily serial. So thank you so much for that comment, Kim. We'll talk a little bit more about research because some other people submitted questions about research. But yeah, when I first started planning Graveyard Girl and I knew that it was going to be, witchcraft was going to be some of the story, I decided to do some research into the moons because, the story hangs very closely to the calendar. So I wanted to make sure that I follow celebrations and holidays, but also holidays for the Wiccan religion and other religious holidays too as we went along. And as it turned out, it was a really good education about the moon phases and some of the Wiccan celebrations. And I brought out a very sort of witchy side of the Wiccan religion, but I'm sure that if anyone knows anyone in the Wiccan religion, they would tell you that it's not all about witchcraft. It's much more about being next to the earth and celebrating more, I guess, nature's holidays and things like that. But we'll get into that in some more questions. The first question was Pat, and she said, if you had to estimate how much time goes into researching the book you're writing, and do you have help with that? And she goes on to say, for instance, in this one we learned about what to feed chickens to produce different eggs, what different crystals are for, moon phases, covens, etc. So if I had to estimate, I would say I probably research all of the serials a couple of months before I get them started. For some of that, it just takes me a while to kind of warm up to the story and to get into my character and figure out, what is going to be the crux of the story, the sensuality level of the story, the mood, the tone. Is it going to be in a small town? Is it going to be, how many of my cameo characters from other books are going to be involved? All of those things. It takes me a little while to map out not just the story, but all the interaction between what's going on in real life, the holidays. I know last year I had to mention the election, and I think Coma Girl, there was a particularly contentious election going on, and I had to mention it, just that it was happening. Those kinds of things, I try to leave a little wiggle room for those things to pop up as I go along, because I do want to mention current events as I'm going along. I write them, I plan them all ahead of time, but I typically don't write them until about a month before. So the July novella I'm writing in June, and then in July I write the August novella, August I write the September novella. I really am writing them as I go. Some of that is I'm dropping into the Facebook group that you all are so good to drop those comments in there and give me feedback, just to see what touch points you're really connecting to, and what's resonating with you, and what questions you have, and things I may not have explained well enough. All of those things, I'm getting your feedback as I go along, and I really am folding that feedback into the story as I go along. I know at the end of the e-novellas that I put on Amazon, I always tell people, if you find a typo, let me know, because I am writing these so fast that I can make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but I say my mind is moving, at a different pace than my fingers. And I'm writing them so quickly, you really are getting those straight from my keyboard almost. I do edit them, but I don't have a lot of time to edit them after I write them because I'm cutting it so close. So I spend a couple of months to research, and then I'm still researching as I go along. Like I try to get those events out there and on the calendar for July, August, September, for the 6 months that the story is taking place. But I'm also, things are popping up all along. One of those things, as a matter of fact, was I heard from another very good friend of mine, and she follows along with every story, Mary in Florida, and she mentioned that she and her husband were doing the laying of the wreaths in December. And since I was doing so much with veterans and mentioning veterans cemeteries and the graves in my story, that it might be something helpful to mention. And I knew about the laying of the wreaths ceremony, but I guess in the back, I just kind of put it in the back of my mind, and I didn't think about it for this story. And as soon as Mary mentioned it, I said, of course, I'm going to incorporate it into the story. So I really am adding detail as I go. So yeah, I know what to feed chickens. I grew up on a farm, and I know that marigolds are absolutely the best thing to feed chickens if you want those nice golden yolks. So I knew a little bit about that. I knew a little bit of enough about farming to kind of throw in some things. Although I did get a really nice email from a lady who raises goats, and I wish I had that in front of me, but she was telling me some of the things that I'd gotten not quite right with the goat as far as tying him up and this and that. So anyway, those are things I'm going to try to fix in the print version. So if in case I didn't mention it, one of the reasons I do this Facebook Live event and try to get your feedback is because if you bring up points that either I didn't explain well enough, or if you have questions about something that either I missed, or maybe I didn't connect all the dots, then I will go back into the print version and I will make those corrections. That's why I don't do the print version until after this event. So one of the things I'll be kind of tweaking a little bit in the print version is how I handled the goat, Satan. Okay, next question. By the way, thanks again, Pat, for those comments. Amy asked, will there be another girl this year, another serial? She's asking. I now look forward to them every year. More importantly, I miss them for a while after they wrap up, which thank you for that comment. So I love, when I first started the serials, I was hoping to get everybody sort of back into the habit of reading and reading every day. So I know that everyone's busy. You all are, I'm sure, just as busy, if not more busy than I am. And not a lot of people have time to sit down and read a full book, just leisurely. Just getting you into the serials, I thought if I could get people into the habit of reading just a few minutes a day and realize that at the end of 6 months you've finished this big, thick, chunky book, that hopefully that would be a new way to experience a story and a new way to read and get back into reading. And I know all of you here, most of you are big readers anyway. You would be doing this without me. But I'm happy if this is like an extra little reading experience I can give you through the year. So thanks for that, Amy. And yes, we're going to have another serial in 2025, and I'll talk more about that at the end of tonight's event. And just say that, this year will be number 10. I can't believe that we're into almost to 10 of these. And a lot of you have been with me from the very beginning of the serials. So thank you. And yes, I'll talk more about this year's serial at the end of the event. Okay, and Janet asked, will there be a sequel to this serial? More importantly, will we find out more about Serena and Jack Terry? Okay, so for those of you who've been around to read a lot of the serials, you'll know that I mentioned Detective Jack Terry in almost every serial. I think he's been in every one except, I don't think he was in Factory Girl, but all the other ones he's been, a small to a medium part of. And I thought this would be a good time to bring back Jack back to Birmingham because for those of you who follow along with the Body Mover series, you know that Jack is from Birmingham. And I mentioned Serena, his first girlfriend, his first love, when he was just a rookie cop in Birmingham, in books, I believe 11 and 12 of the Body Mover series. So at the end of that book, we find out that Jack had this love and that she had been murdered, and the murder was never solved, and it was part of Jack's reluctance to commit to Carlotta in the Body Mover series. Anyway, so I thought this would be a good time to bring back Serena and also to remind everyone that her murder hadn't been solved. It's still an open loop for Jack in the Body Mover series. And when we find out more about Serena and Jack, let's just say I'll have a little update about that at the end of the event as well. Okay. And then as far as will there be a sequel to the serial, I haven't written any sequels to the serials that I've written so far, but I have added like a little add-on, like a bonus scene to a couple of three of the serials. And I committed to writing a bonus scene for all of the serials just to give you a little catch up, like what's happening now with the characters. And I'm going to continue to do that. So look for some bonus scenes for some more of the serials. I think I'm up to number 3 or 4 on those. I'm going to try to get out at least 3 more of those this year to give you some catch up on what's going on with those characters. And eventually I will do a bonus scene for Graveyard Girl as well. Okay, Marilyn asked, why did Coleman tell Tilda she was flaunting herself and that she was on her own now? Okay, so Coleman is part of, he's also part of the coven. He wasn't as, I guess, he didn't participate as much in some of the events as some of the others did. But we know that Coleman is part of the coven because we saw his scrying mirror, right, in his grocery store. Or at least Josephine saw his scrying mirror and saw him using it. So I think when Coleman told Tilda she was flaunting herself and she was on her own, he was just letting her know that she was a little over the top. She was maybe overstepping a little bit in her role as, head of the coven. And I think he was just trying to tell her to pull back a little bit. And then, of course, as the story goes on, then, of course, we realize that Tilda had gone a little bit over the top because she had influenced her twin girls to behave very badly and do something terrible. And so I think Coleman was the first person to warn her about, watch what you're doing. People are looking at you and taking their cues from you. And then who was Coleman trying to contact with this scrying mirror? And I insinuated, if I didn't make it clear, that he was trying to contact Rose. So I guess I didn't make that clear. That's probably one thing I'll go back and tweak in the print version. So thanks for bringing that up. And then Marilyn asked, is Sawyer a warlock? She says, I think yes, after a bald Curtis. And yes, I think yes as well. He didn't come right out and say, did he? But I tried to, between Curtis and then the snowfall on Christmas, and then, where he touched the tombstone and sort of fixed the crack in the stone. I was trying to insinuate all those things to lead you to believe that, yes, Sawyer is a warlock. He just did not want to practice like some of the other people in the story. Okay, I'm going to take a break from Marilyn's questions. She has two or three more here, and then I've got another page of questions just to say hello to some people that have dropped in. Let's see. Patty is here from Rochester. Suzanne says, hello from LA. Safe, although the fires were very close and we're under evacuation warnings for a while. The firefighters are true heroes and put out the one a mile from us within 90 minutes. We are very thankful. Oh gosh, that's such good news. Thank you for posting that, Suzanne. Janice says she's in Michigan. Also, let's see. Carla says, love that you're keeping a pulse of the readers as you write. I absolutely am. I'm not always the best about making comments in what's going on inside the group because I don't want to interfere. I want to see what you're all talking about amongst yourselves, but I always drop in and see what you're saying. And Carla, I'll come back to your question in a minute. And then, let's see. Letitia says, thanks for yay for another serial. And Patty says, I love him in Body Movers. I believe she means Jack there. And then Jamie, my brother, is on here, and he says some very sweet things. I love you too. My brother's been such a big supporter of me from the very beginning, my brother and sister and everyone in my family. And I have an aunt on here as well. I said hello to Linda earlier. And okay, just a couple more comments. Lisa's, I love these series. And a couple of other people are glad that I've got another serial coming up this year. So thanks for those. All right, I'm going to get back to the questions, but keep posting those questions in the comments because I've got some of those I'll get back to as well. And this is continuing with Marilyn's question. She said, was Graveyard Girl harder to write than your previous dailies? I'm trying to think which one of mine was the most difficult to write. Honestly, I think Escort Girl was the hardest to write. That was year before last. And that was one of the hardest ones to write just because I was so unfamiliar with that world of, the public relations world. And I felt like I was trying to tell a lot of stories in that story. I had a mystery going on. The heroine in that story had a personal crisis with her family. There was a romance. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on in Graveyard Girl as well, but I think because Graveyard Girl was more contained, that she was in one place and everything was happening kind of revolving around her and sort of within arm's length. That felt like a story that I had more control of, if that makes sense. Whereas Escort Girl was going out every day and meeting with different clients every day, and so there were lots of different venues and lots of activities and events that I had to learn about, and also there was a lot of pop culture in that book. I felt like that was my most difficult serial to write. Graveyard Girl was a little easier because it felt contained, and I don't know, there was just something about, I really loved writing about the cemetery and the graveyard. And I'm not a particularly macabre person, but one of my earliest story ideas was an idea about a person who moves cemeteries. There are people who do that for a living. Like if there is some sort of a eminent domain that a cemetery has to be moved to make way for a highway or something like that. Those, there's a very particular way to go about moving a cemetery. And I read about someone who did it, and I just thought it was fascinating. So I've always had the idea of maybe writing about a graveyard or a cemetery, but I just hadn't committed to it. And Graveyard Girl let me sort of get out some of those ideas that I'd been, incubating for several years. So it was not without some effort. I definitely had to stretch myself on this one, but it wasn't the most difficult one that I've written. So I think that was probably another one. But I have to say, I'm always exhausted when the serials are over, so I'm always glad to see them end, and I'm glad to see them end well, and to put that button on them. Um, I think because they always end around the holidays, I'm always like tired and glad that I get a break right before the holidays. So I think that's part of it too. Okay, and Marilyn had one more question. She said, will Serena's murder ever get solved? Does the appearance of her necklace on her tombstone mean there's a killer at large in Irving? Okay, Serena's murder, that's, we'll talk about that at the end of the event. I'm going to talk about some other things I have going on for the rest of the year. So let's put a pin in that one and we'll get back to it. And okay, so I'm going on to some more questions, and then reminder that if you've got questions, be sure and post them in the comments if you didn't get a chance to submit a question. Barbara commented, we readers are greedy and are always asking for more. Thank you for giving us these great stories. That's really sweet. Thanks, Barbara. At some point, will there be a series that will tie all these stories together? I don't know if I'll ever have a story where I get all the girls, in my little girl world together. But, from your comment and Facebook page and from, your lips to a producer's ears in Hollywood, because what I would really love is for someone to option one of the girl books and turn it into a feature or a TV series. And then hopefully, if that does well enough, then option some of the other girl books too, because I really would love to see all of these. I think they're all a similar enough tone and have a similar audience. I really would like to see a handful of these make it to TV or film, but I know that's a long shot. My manager and I are working on it all the time, and we're always answering questions and following leads and shopping it around to everyone we can. That's a long shot, but I'm hoping that will be the way that someday all the stories will be tied together. Letitia asked, how do you determine the location of your stories? And then another question after this one. I'll go ahead and answer this one before I get to her second question. So how do I determine the location of my stories? Okay, so way back in 2016 when I was getting ready to launch the Coma Girl serial, which was the first serial that I wrote, I was very aware that my readers were hoping for and waiting for another Body Movers book because I was deep into that series. And honestly, I was afraid that my readers would be upset that I was working on Coma Girl instead of writing another Body Movers book. And one day I was riding down the road and I was really thinking about this and how I would handle this, and just it was a real concern. And one thing I definitely appreciate my readers, and I try so hard to keep you all happy. I didn't want to risk alienating anyone thinking that I was just off on some tangent. And so that's when I came up with the idea of bringing Jack Terry into the Coma Girl serial. And if you read Coma Girl, you know that Jack appeared at least once a week in that serial, and he played a big part in solving the Coma Girl mystery, and became, I guess, friends with Coma Girl while she was still asleep. And it also gave the readers a chance to see Jack outside of the Body Mover series. In the Body Mover series, we only see Carlotta and her brother's point of view. We don't really see what Jack is thinking. We only know about Jack from what Carlotta knows about Jack. So Coma Girl gave me a chance to get some more, information out there about Jack and what's on his mind than we would have seen otherwise. And I just loved being able to do that, and I think the readers connected with Jack in a different way, and it seemed to be a popular thing to do. So I kept bringing Jack and some other characters of the Body Movers back. But because I decided I was going to bring Jack into Coma Girl, I realized it has to happen in Atlanta because that's where the Body Movers series is set. So honestly, I put Coma Girl in Atlanta for that reason, just so that I could bring Jack there. And of course, Atlanta is where I've lived most of my adult life, so I knew a lot about it. And I just kept putting some of the stories either in Atlanta. The serials are either in Atlanta or adjacent to Atlanta. Um, like the Holiday Girl was set in North Georgia, so a couple hours drive outside of Atlanta. And let's see, the one, oh, Comeback Girl was set in Birmingham. And I did that because well, it was set in Accident, Alabama, which is outside of Birmingham. And I set it there because I knew that Jack had started his career in Birmingham, and so I thought it would be a good reason for him to come back and be a drop in on that story, because I wanted the disappearance of her friend was one of his first cases that he ever investigated, and that's what brought him back into that story. So really, the locations where I've set them has had a lot more to do with the cameos from the Body Movers series, except for next year's serial, which I've already decided where the setting's going to be. And again, I'll tell you more about that at the end of this event. Okay, and then Letitia asked a second question: do you have any ideas for another serial? Yes, I've already got an idea for the 2025 serial. I'll share what I can at the end of this, and yeah, my mind is going all the time about what stories I can write next. And I do have a folder on my laptop of serial ideas that I go to from time to time. So I've got some, I guess I would call them B ideas, C ideas. For serials, but it seems like as I get close to the serial, I always come up with something different that's not on the list, that I decide that's what I'm going to do. And there's just something about it. Once I think of something, it's like the pieces all start to fall into place, and that's what happened for with the idea for this year's serial as well, the 2025 serial. More about that in a bit. Deanna asks, what happened to Curtis? So I didn't really say, except that he hopefully is out of Josephine's life, is that he's been so discredited by his rants and raves that she's put a spell on him, and that she's caused all these things to happen to him, that hopefully he is going away. If I didn't make that clear enough, maybe that's something I can tweak in the print version to just put a bow on it, that Curtis is gone and we don't have to worry about him anymore. And there was another question about Curtis, and let's see, did I miss it? No, let's see. Oh. No, here's the other question about Curtis. I want to know how he knew the first book ending. Okay, so in the story, we remember that Curtis actually released the ending of her book before she did. And so I guess maybe I didn't explain it well enough, but I thought in the back of my mind, I was thinking that he was actually with Josephine when she was planning this book. And when he left, he just took a lot of her files with him, or he had access to her cloud, and he knew what her ending was going to be. He didn't release the chapters of the ending, just what the ending was, enough to spoil it for people who would have been reading the book. So maybe I can make that a little more clear in the print version if everyone thinks I should. Because I saw someone, hang on, let me go back. Let's see. Okay, question. Did I miss who was leaking the book to Curtis? And that was, let's see, I think Carla asked that. And Suzanne said, yes, I wanted to know as well. Um, okay. Hi, Trish. My aunt's on here. My other aunt is on here. Um, okay, let me go back. Let me see. I've lost her. I've lost her question. Hang on. Anyway, the question was who leaked the book to Curtis? And in my mind, I thought that he just took some files with him and that he kind of insinuated himself into Josephine's life and her career, and he always had access to those. But I will make that more clear in the print version. How about it? It seems like there were a couple of questions about that. Um, let's see. Carla asked, how do you come up with the lead girls' names? And do you mind if we shorten her name in our comments, like Josie or Joe? Not that I don't like Josephine, but it takes longer to type. Yeah, I agree. Josephine, there were a couple of people, I think her roommate called her Josie, and someone else, uh, maybe her editor at one point shortened her name. Um, so I do like having names where they can be shortened to nicknames because to me, it tells you something about her relationship to other people. If like my name is a long name, and people who are close to me call me Steph, and that's perfectly fine with me. I love that. I like that. And you can, to me, it means something. It says something about the people who know me well enough to call me Steph. And I feel the same way with girls who have longer names, women who have longer names, Josephine, that, you know, if you know someone well enough to call them Joe or Josie, then I think that says a lot about the relationship. And no, I don't mind if you shorten their name in comments. I don't mind at all. Um, let's see. Let's see with some other questions. How early do you start planning the next serial? Normally I wait till the last minute, I gotta say, because I have a lot of projects going on, and I have a note to myself that pops up on my calendar about the 1st of May of every year saying, if you haven't thought of the serial, you really need to get on this. But thankfully, this year I'm a little early. So yeah, I'm getting started a little earlier on the serial this year. Okay, and let's see. I got about the question about Curtis, and Joanne asked, who took the diary? Okay, so there was a diary in the house at one point that Rose had written, and then when Josephine went back to look for it, it was missing. There was an episode where Josephine thought someone was in the house. She was I think she was in Rose's workshop, and she heard someone in the house, and she was sure that they were running around the staircase. She thought she saw someone, and she thought that they ran out the front door. Okay, I guess I didn't make that really clear either. It was actually the Benson twins, at least one of them, that snuck into the house to steal Rose's diary. So that's who took the diary. And again, I will make that more clear in the print version of Graveyard Girl. And then Joanne asked, any chance for an epilogue? I I I don't plan to do an epilogue, but I will do a bonus scene in a few months or whenever I get caught up on the other bonus scenes for the other serials. At some point, I will do a bonus scene to catch you up on what's happening with Josephine and Sawyer. Promise. Okay, those were all the pre-submitted questions, and let me check the comments and see if someone's posted any more questions in the. Someone said, I would love to binge a series on Netflix. So would I. So would I. That's Suzanne, and Patty says TV would be great. Wilma says Elevator and Coma Girl would be great for TV. Thank you for that. Coma Girl actually was optioned for a TV series. CBS Studios optioned it, and the CW network actually bought it. And there was a wonderful pilot written, and the CW didn't pick it up though. They didn't actually film the pilot, just the pilot script was written. And it was so good. Oh my gosh, it was so good. But the CW didn't order it to pilot that year because that was the year that they brought back, I believe it was like a record number of their series from the previous year. It was like 14 series they picked up or that they brought back from the previous year. And that was when the CW was really big into superheroes. They were doubling down on superheroes, and Coma Girl just didn't quite fit that mix. So unfortunately, it didn't go forward. But I keep hoping that CBS Studios will realize that there's this great pilot script sitting, that's already been paid for. They paid a wonderful writer to write that script, and it's so good. And I keep hoping somebody's going to find it in a dusty drawer in a desk somewhere and say, hey, we paid for this script and it's just sitting here, and why don't we do something with it? So fingers crossed. And Elevator Girl, we've had some interest in Elevator Girl. That's probably the other of all the serials. That one's probably gotten the most interest. So, but if you know anything about Hollywood, it's really tough to get anyone's attention there. And even if something gets bought or optioned, it's really difficult for it to go forward. The chances are really low that things actually make it to screen. And then recently we've had there was the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and then there was the contraction of everything happening in Hollywood. There for a while, I think it was up to like 600 TV shows on all the streamers and all the networks, and now it's down to about 200 to 250, something like that. So there's been a huge contraction in the market, and the streamers and the networks just aren't buying as much as they used to. But still, we're trying. And unfortunately, the industry was just getting back to work. And everyone was really looking forward to a strong 2025, and now the fires, and a lot of people in the industry live in the Palisades area, and there have been a lot of disruption of TV shows that were being filmed. So unfortunately, another setback for LA and the TV and the movie industry. But we're still trying. I have a great manager, and he is still trying all the time to sell my shows and to get my books optioned. And I'm doing a little bit of screenwriting now too, so I'm working hard at it too. So thank you for all those comments. Let's see. Oh, and Pat says yes, she would like to see the Body Movers series on Netflix. Thank you for that. The Body Movers series was optioned way back in 2012. And again, another great pilot was written. It didn't go forward, but it's another one of those things where I keep hoping that someone's going to discover the pilot. Actually, the couple who wrote the pilot went on to do the reboot of the Planet of the Apes movies. I mean, these were A-list writers. These were big name writers, and the pilot was really good. And again, I keep hoping that Sony optioned the Body Movers series. It's no longer, the option fell out, but I keep hoping that Sony will realize we paid for this script and it's pretty good, and let's do this. So if anybody knows anybody at Sony Studios, let's go Body Movers. Janice said, I love Coma Girl. That's really sweet of you to say. Carla says, ooh, I thought all along that someone was leaking the book to Curtis. Okay, I will say, I did think about having an assistant, Josephine having an assistant that kind of turned on her and was leaking things, but I just couldn't figure out a way to have her in the story. It was going to be yet another person that was like off location, there's somebody that she was going to have to hear about third person or on the telephone. And I just decided it was kind of an extraneous character, and I didn't use it. I didn't use that person, that assistant that kind of betrayed her. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? I'm going to let you make some comments to tell me what you think about the idea of having an assistant who betrayed her. So post in the comments and tell me what you think about that. Okay, and let's see. Michelle says, yay for the bonus scene. I want more of Sawyer. Don't we all? Sawyer, oh my gosh. I have to say, I really loved writing about an ex-military guy who uses his hands. He's a brick mason and he works, he's a sculptor. And I don't know, there's just something about a blue-collar hero, isn't there? Oh, I thought Sawyer was great. Yeah, I thought he was yummy. Is it Janie or Janny? She says, what all do you have coming up for us to devour? I mean, to enjoy. Gosh, maybe this would be a good time to talk about that, what I've got coming up for the year. And then I'll get back to some comments if you guys have any more questions in the comment section. Patty says, CW's loss. Thank you. They were the network that bought Coma Girl and didn't go forward with it. Thank you for that. And let's see. Lee says, Hallmark would be great for these. Yeah, I'm still trying to get Hallmark interested in some things. They're a hard nut to crack. Those of you who have been around for a while, you remember that my rom-com Stop the Wedding was adapted into a Hallmark movie, and that still replays every once in a while. It's funny, I'll get notes from friends and family that say, your movie's on right now. And I'll go turn it on and watch it. And I thought Hallmark did a great job with that book and that movie. And I wish they would pick up some more of my books. We'll see. Some of my books are a little too sensual for them. But I think the serials, a couple of them would make great Hallmark movies or series. Actually, I was really hoping that they would look at Holiday Girl. But right after I wrote Holiday Girl, I saw that Hallmark bought something very similar about some mystery series where this woman runs a Christmas year-round shop. So that's not going to happen. But maybe Hallmark will someday be interested in some of the other serials. We'll see. I'm open to it. Let's see. Let's see. Patty says, don't judge me, but I just discovered you this year. Now I want all your books. That's really sweet. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't expect everybody to have read all of my books, but that's really sweet of you. I've written a lot of books because I've been doing this for so long, so hopefully you'll find something out there that piques your interest. And Pat made a very sweet comment. Let's see. Oh, Letitia, thank you for that. Janice says no assistant. Pat says no assistant. I think Curtis had her files or her email or cloud access. Okay. I'm glad you didn't go the assistant route. Well, okay. Okay. Oh, I assumed it was either her agent or someone in his office. Oh my gosh, that's good, Carla. All right, I'm going to think about that one. Because, I don't know. That's actually really good. If I'd thought about that, I might would have used that. If someone in his office had been leaking it to Curtis, I don't know. I still kind of like the idea that Curtis is so wicked and mean that he kind of just did this on his own. No assistant, Letitia says. The other part of that is I thought I would make her assistant a female, and I really hated the idea of a woman turning on another woman. I hate that. So I think that's another reason why I said no to the assistant. Let's see. Ellen actually likes the idea of an assistant. Colette says no assistant. There would be too many betrayals for one person. Okay. Alicia says, love that movie. Oh, Stop the Wedding. Oh, thanks. I started to say, what movie? Oh, that's sweet of you. Um, Carla says, an assistant that betrays Josie wasn't needed. You did a great job with the jerk Curtis as a villain, but she would like to see Curtis get a huge public comeuppance. Okay. All right. Maybe I can make more of that in the book, in the print book. No, Joe suffered enough betrayal, Nick's the assistant. Tina says your characters and plots would translate beautifully to screen. Thank you. And sweet of you to say, Tina. And then Lee says, I thought the agent did it. Okay. All right. All right. That was a good thought, too. Okay. All right. Okay. If you got any other comments, please put them up there. I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I've got coming up this year. First, I'll be making Graveyard Girl available in print within about 10 days. Like I said, I always wait till after these events so I can go in and tweak the print version. It's always a little different than the ebooks. And then I'm going to get Graveyard Girl into audio by the end of January. I've been kind of lax on getting the last couple of serials into audio because the audio business is changing so quickly, so rapidly. I don't want to go into the weeds on this one, but it takes so long and it is so expensive to get an audiobook narrated. And the process is just you just a lot of steps and very lengthy and a lot of time for me and for the narrator. And it's, like I said, it's very expensive to do it. And so I didn't do the last couple of serials in audio, but now audio has come along so fast, the new tools that are out, that I think I'm going to be able to get this one into audio pretty quickly. So I'm going to try to have it out in Graveyard Girl in audio by the end of January. Okay, what else is coming up this year? Continuing with my stories behind the stories. So that's a serial that's on my website. So if you're not familiar with the stories behind the stories that I've been writing, there are 12 chapters now. The stories behind the stories are kind of my career memoir, I guess. I'm just going back through my career and some of my archives and talking about how I got started writing and some of the first books that I wrote and some of the rejections that I got, my critique groups and the writing groups that I belong to, how I met my editor and how I got ideas for different types, for the different books that I wrote and why I wrote in different lines, and then when lines, what I did to pivot when lines closed. Also, I was not writing. I didn't study writing in college. I studied computer science. So when I got out, I had an IT job. I was a programmer, which now we call them coders. That's what I was when I got out of college, and I went the corporate route and had a whole different career before I got into writing. So I talked about transitioning out of that. If you're not following Stories Behind the Stories, there are about 12 chapters of that up on my website now. It's completely free to read if you're interested in just knowing about how I got into this and how I got ideas for some of my early books. I think I'm up to about the year 2000, so really not very far into my career at all, maybe 3 or 4 years into my career at that point. Tina says, I've loved every chapter of it. Thank you. Carla, goodbye. Carla has to go, so thanks, Carla. And Wilma says, love seeing you in the young pictures that go with your chapters. Oh, yeah, I put a lot of photos out there. And I've got a few photos from my career. Of course, that was back when we were doing, we took everything with cameras and had to get film developed. And so I don't have a lot of great pictures, but anyway, I'm putting up the ones that I do have. And okay, one more question was posted. Suzanne said, have you ever had your laptop get fried and lose a book you're working on? So not lately. That happened a couple of times earlier in my career, back when laptops were a lot less reliable than they are now. I laugh because I think back. My first laptop was about, I don't know, probably 5 inches thick, something like that. It probably weighed 35 pounds. It wasn't even portable really, but that was back in the mid 90s. I got my first laptop, and I mean, everything was precarious back then. You just never knew when you were going to get that blue screen of death, saying, just start over. And there really wasn't even a great way to back up your files back then. But now that everything's in the cloud, and I'm sort of a little paranoid about things, I email myself I don't know, every few versions of this book that I'm working on. I always email it to myself so that I've got access to it everywhere. But I also have Dropbox, and so I have a lot of redundancy in my files now, so I don't worry about it as much. There was one time I was working in Word, and for some reason, that particular update had some wonky glitches in it. And I remember one of them was if I was correcting something and I hit the delete button, and if I held it down for like more than 2 or 3 letters, it just took off by itself and it just deleted the entire file. And I would literally sit there screaming at the screen, watching it delete everything that I had just written. But thankfully, that only happened a couple of times, and I was able to recover my files. So things are much, much more stable now than they used to be. Okay, continuing on with what I've got coming up this year. So again, stories behind the stories. I'm just going to be adding new chapters this year. There are 12 out there. I'll be adding them every few weeks. Every couple of months, I'll be adding another chapter out there. They're all, they never disappear. You can start with chapter 1 right now and read all the way through chapter 12. I'm going to keep them up there all the time. Really, that's just something I'm going to leave out there. So if you're interested in my writing career, or if you know anyone who's interested in writing that might be interested, please send them the link. Again, it's all free. You don't even have to give me an email address or anything. And then as I'm going through my backlist and talking about my career and stories behind the stories, I'm also trying to tidy up my backlist a little bit and get things out in formats that they should be. One of my goals this year is to get the Body Movers books out in really nice print versions, because they're just kind of all over the place, because my former publisher still owned the first 6 and I owned the last part of the series, and it was always a little bit of a jumble. But I'm going to try to get them out in really nice print versions this year, and maybe in large print as well. So I've got some plans to get my sort of formats cleaned up a little bit for my backlist as I go through my memoir. Okay, and then on to other books that I'm going to be writing for this year. In the first quarter, I'm going to put out the 4th and final Voodoo book and finally wrap up that series. Book 3 came out last year. Book 4 will be, like I said, it's going to tie everything up. So I am finally going to get that book out. That'll be in this first quarter, so that'll be before the end of March. Also, another revamped romance that I gotten back from a former publisher. This one's called My Favorite Mistake. It was written in first person. I was able to write a couple of my early romances for Harlequin in first person point of view, and that was one of them. So I really love that story, and I'm really eager to get back into it and kind of update it and get it ready for re-release. And I'll be doing that in the first quarter as well. That was My Favorite Mistake. In the second quarter, I'm going to write a new Two Guys Detective Agency book. So this will be book 3. I know I really love this series, but wow, I have had a hard time getting those books out back to back just because I've been so busy with other things I've been trying to tie up. If you've read Two Guys Detective Agency, I actually wrote it way back in like 2012. And the reason I did is because my film agent loved the idea of it, and he said, I can get this optioned if you give me a book to go with this idea. So I wrote the first book, and he did get it optioned, and it didn't really go anywhere. And I was so busy writing other books that I didn't get to book 2 until much later, just a couple of years ago, actually. And then now I want to get book 3. I want to get book 3 out in the second quarter, and I'm going to start trying to release more of those books more often. And then wait for it, a new Body Movers book in the second quarter. So yes, I'm going to have. I ended the series in book 12, but as you saw in Graveyard Girl, I really want to have that open loop of Serena's murder, and I'm going to bring that back for book 13. So I'm going to do another Body Movers book. Again, I'd like to get it out. I don't have a release date yet, but probably sometime June or so. I really want to get it out before the next serial. So I will let you know titles and release dates and all of those things as soon as I get them nailed down. And then July 1, yes, a new daily serial, and this will be number 10. So I wanted to do something kind of special for the daily serial for 2025. I can't tell you the name of it yet. When I do, I'll be announcing it in the Serials Facebook group first, because I promised you guys for joining the group, you're always going to get information about the serial first there. So I'll make the announcement in the Facebook group as soon as I can. The only thing I want to say about that I can say and I want to say about the serial is 2025 serial will be set in Kentucky, my home state, and I am excited about that. It's going to be something has to do with Kentucky. I'll tell you that. So it's a little clue. It has something to do with Kentucky that's special and sort of let's see, unique to Kentucky. Let me put it that way. So comments. Yes, Body Movers. Can't wait. Great news for number 13. Yay, new Body Movers. I'm glad you're happy about that. I am too, because I'm always happy to get back to those characters. Gosh, it's been an hour already. And so unless you all have any questions that some people are throwing out some comments about this year's serial. Carla says, Derby Girl, horse racing, all good guesses. Yeah, thanks, guys. But I will keep you posted and let you know. I have already decided what the title is. I've got some good artwork to go with it. I'm kind of getting, a little ahead of the serial this year, which is unusual for me. Marilyn says my guess would be horses. Okay, I will. Let's put a pin in that, and I'll get back to you on that as soon as I have a few more details and I feel better about sharing the story with you. Let's see. Lee says, what writers are you close to? What do you mean? You mean in proximity? Like where I live? I'm actually bouncing back and forth between Atlanta and Kentucky right now. So I have writer friends actually in both places, because I was living in Kentucky when I first started my career, and I've still got writing friends here. And then I was in Atlanta when I was first published, so I have a lot of friends back there too. A lot of Zooming going on, a lot of Zoom groups going on. Okay, everybody. Ellen says, love Body Movers. Thanks so much for these live chats. Carla says, Mint Julep Girl. That's a good guess too. And Pat says, thanks so much for doing this. Thank you, Pat. Thank you for all that you do for us and for the group and for the serials. I mean, we just could not have those great recaps without you and a lot of people that participate in the group. So thank you so much. Okay. And everybody's just saying, like that more is coming. Yeah, I got a lot coming out this year, but I hope it's a productive year for me, and I hope everyone else is planning a happy and that you have a safe 2025. And I will see you on my Facebook page and in the group, okay? Thank you again for coming. I love all of you. Thanks for being the best readers that anyone could possibly ask for. And I just thank you. I could not do this without you. So, okay, bye for now. We'll see you soon.